Microsociety series Youth Now. I'm Martin, your host. I'm excited to be bringing you interviews with exceptional young people who are working hard to make the world a better place. Today I'm honored to introduce to you Shiva Rajbhandari, a 19-year-old from Boise, Idaho. Shiva is known for winning a spot on the Boise Education Board at 18. He is also an organizer for the Sunrise Movement, which leads protests against climate change and for education. Shiva, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me on, Martin.
All right, wonderful. Okay, first of all, congratulations on being the first student to run and win a school board election in Idaho. So, yippee. Why did you want to run for a seat on the Boise School Board?
I've grown up organizing in high school and junior high, along with all of my peers. And we'd been working for a long time on getting our school district to create a climate action plan, a clean energy commitment and long-term sustainability plan for our schools. And in doing this, we engaged a lot with the school board. And for over 2 years, we sent postcards to the board, dozens of emails asking for meetings. And it just really felt like our voices weren't heard in the decision-making process in our schools. And so I decided to run for the board and really create student representation in the decision-making processes in our school district. We garnered endorsements from legislators, city council members, the Idaho Statesman, the Treasure Valley's largest newspaper, and really made the case for why students deserve representation on our school board. And at the end of the day, we saw a record turnout in the election, where over 20,000 people voted, and I won by 55% of the vote. It was I just feel very grateful and humbled to serve.
What issues did you want to address the most?
Yeah, my top three issues in running for the seat were mental health, climate action, and supporting teachers. It's no secret that we're in a mental health crisis right now. I'm sure you've seen that in your schools. And it's not new with COVID. Back even in 2019, we saw extreme rates. 10% of Idaho students acted on suicidal intentions. I mean, that's even higher for students of marginalized groups, such as Hispanic and Latina students, or LGBTQ plus students. And it's unfortunate that the burden to act on the mental health crisis has fallen to our schools, but that is the case. As we try to build schools that are inclusive, as we try to build schools where every kid can learn, which is what we really do fundamentally believe in the Boise School District, we have to address the mental health needs of our students. We have to address the elephant in the room. The second issue is the climate crisis, which it's no secret is the number one issue that our generation cares about the most. And it just makes sense, honestly, that schools lead the way for our communities towards a clean energy future, a future free of fossil fuels. When we see fires, floods, and droughts all across this country that interrupt students' ability to get to school, to stay in the classroom, and are really just destroying people's lives and families and homes. But also because there's a lot of money to be saved in acting on the climate crisis in our schools, especially with the passage of the Inflation Reduction Act recently. School districts can save millions of dollars by creating a long-term climate action plan and really putting into words how they're going to get out of fossil fuels and switch to clean energy. And then finally, supporting teachers, especially in the wake of the COVID pandemic. We've seen this real rise in extremism, especially in states like Idaho, that has sought to undermine our public schools, undermine our public educators, and has really made it hard to be a teacher. And I think it's just critical that school board members are there supporting our teachers unions, because what's good for teachers is good for students. And they're the most critical asset in our school systems, and it's just really important that we are vocal in our support of our public school educators.
Incredible. That's very fascinating. Did anyone in particular inspire you to stand up for your rights as a student?
Yeah, There's a lot of folks who inspired me. I mean, certainly when I think of people who just inspire me in general, I think of folks like the late Representative John Lewis, who, as you may know, led the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee in the '60s and helped to win the Civil Rights Act. And he did that as a college student, as someone who's about my age. In my community and kind of more personally, it was really my teachers who inspired me. One teacher in particular, her name is Monica Church, has been a huge mentor of mine since 10th grade, and continues to be even while I'm thousands of miles away at college. Every step of the way, she's just been there for me. And so I'm just really lucky to have such incredible educators in my life. And then also my peers. My peers from middle school were walking out of school demanding that our elected officials take responsibility for this climate crisis. They weren't believing the lie that fossil fuel companies tell us that the climate crisis is our responsibility. They said, no, we need system-wide solutions to the climate crisis, and we are not going to stop until we get those. Organizations like the Sunrise Movement that have made tremendous strides towards a just and equitable future for all, that have been led by folks who look like you and me, or about our age, just really have shown that when we come together and dream bigger for our communities, we can win real change regardless of our age.
I love how you mention how, like, even if you're young, this is like basically the whole entire motto of the concept of micro societies. Even though we're young, we can make a difference. How did your friends and family react to your decision to run?
My friends were very supportive. I mean, I didn't run just out of the blue. It was really a process of talking to the folks I'd been organizing with for climate action in our school district. And my friends were like really down to support me and really down to like turn out and like not only vote and get their parents to vote, but also like knock on doors and talk to thousands of people about our campaign and what it would mean to have a student on the school board. My parents, I think it was a little bit more of a surprise for them. I wish I had been more communicative with them, but they were very supportive. And I'm really lucky to have parents who really believed in me and our campaign.
Yeah, I mean, parents, they are the main role models in your life, and to have their support, and that matters a lot. Why do you think voters elected you over the incumbent?
I mean, we ran on a real campaign, right? And I don't think you really saw this among any of the other candidates as much as with our campaign. We brought forward real policy solutions, real changes that we wanted to see in our school district. And the reason we were able to bring forward those policy solutions and know that they would work and know what we wanted for our schools was because we were in our schools, right? We knew what it was like to be a student, and we knew that there were certain policy failures at the district level that were making it like harder to be a student, making it like that were limiting the success of our school district. And so because of that, we were able to propose real solutions to the problems our school district was facing, like the mental health crisis, like the climate crisis, like this rise in extremism. But on the campaign trail, we didn't talk about our opponent, right? I wasn't running against someone. I was running for change in our district. I was running for a student voice on our board. And that's what we want at the end of the day. Having a student on the board allowed me to elevate the voices of my peers and allowed me to bring to the table people who had been left out for a long time, the most important constituent of our school board, which is students.
That's incredible. What made you choose the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill for college?
That's a great question. Yeah, it's 2,500 miles away from Boise, and it's been interesting being a school board member from this distance. And I'll tell you, the reason I continue to serve on this board, real quick, is specifically a campaign promise that I made back when I was running for this seat, and it was that I I would work every day to establish a student position on our school board, just like they have student positions on school boards all across the country. And I did bring forward two policy proposals to establish the student position. Um, But ultimately, if the board refuses to hear those policy proposals or refuses to pass and establish a student position on our board, I would continue to serve, because I recognize that having someone who's just recently graduated high school and knows what it's like to be in high school since the invention of the TI-84, it is going to be more valuable than the voice that another parent or another community member who hasn't been in Boise schools in quite some time would add to the board. So that's why I continue to serve on the board. Why I chose UNC Chapel Hill, there were several reasons. First of all, it's a public school, and it's a great value school. It's one of the top rated institutions in the country, and I feel just so lucky to have had the opportunity to come here. But I also know that UNC has provided me so many opportunities to engage with the North Carolina community, to engage with a totally different world, which is the South, which is so different from the Intermountain West that I grew up in, and has really provided me the support that I need to achieve at a high academic level, and continue to grow, not just towards a career path, but as a person. It's been really fascinating and really engaging and fun to organize here in North Carolina. We started a Sunrise Movement Hub in September of this year, just some friends and I, and it's been really cool to apply a lot of these tactics that I used in Boise and really just learned and was just learning in this campaign, both to get climate action in our school district and to get elected to the school board, and actually to bring these tactics to North Carolina and learn how we can reshape the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill to be a leader in climate action, and how we can continue to pressure the Biden administration to take real action on the climate crisis and recognize that we are in a climate emergency.
All right, so speaking of climate, tell us about the Sunrise Movement, how you got involved, and why you chose this particular climate group to be a part of.
The Sunrise Movement, first of all, is a national movement of young people working to stop the climate crisis and create millions of good jobs in the process. And if you haven't heard of Sunrise, you've probably heard of the Green New Deal, which is this big policy proposal that the Sunrise Movement really popularized. I got involved with the Sunrise Movement actually in 9th grade. I learned about climate change in 7th grade, like you. I started recycling more. I took cold showers. I did all the things corporations tell us to do, that when they say the climate crisis is your fault, right, and you need to act on it. And then the summer after 8th grade, another report came out from the IPCC, which is the international body that looks at climate change, and it said actually climate change is worse than we thought, and nothing's getting better, and we're all screwed. And I was well, what is all this doing? I've been taking cold showers for a year. I don't eat meat. I've learned everything there is to learn about recycling, and it's done nothing. And that's when I started realizing the climate crisis isn't going to be solved by these individual actions. It's going to be solved by a mass movement of young people working for systemic change and working to end the era of fossil fuels. And so the first September of my freshman year, I was walking downtown with my friends, and I saw this big, bold yellow poster that said in big black letters, "Youth Climate Strike this Friday at the Idaho Capitol." And so that Friday, my friends and I walked down from our junior high. That day, it wasn't just 100 kids, it wasn't 1,000 kids, there were over 1,500 kids standing there on the steps demanding our elected officials pass a Green New Deal. And it had been organized by this organization called Sunrise Movement Boise, in tandem with climate strikes all across the country and all across the world, actually. Millions of youth walked out of their classroom that day. And so after the strike, I was actually just invited by some of the organizers to come attend this training and learn how to organize for a Green New Deal and what that meant. And so I went that Saturday, and I kind of haven't really looked back since.
That's wonderful. I mean, as you said, 1,500 over 1,500 people were there to act youth, you know, and that just shows, a lot of people demand a change. It's nice to know that people care and they want to make a change, just like you.
Well,
Um,
and because of those protests in September 2019, we saw 12 of the 16 frontrunners for the Democratic primary were Green New Deal candidates, right? We saw this political realignment where Democrats said, actually, maybe we do need to talk about the climate crisis. And we saw President Biden run on this campaign that was pretty close to the Green New Deal, the Build Back Better Act. And ultimately, we saw the passage of the two largest pieces of climate legislation ever, the Inflation Reduction Act and the bipartisan infrastructure bill, that have really opened the floodgates to climate action in this country. We continue not to be heard when it comes to the climate crisis and how bad it is, but there is progress. And if anything, like, it's showing that our movement is working. When we rise up, when we use our voices, we can make a ton of change. And we're going to continue to do that until we end this crisis and bring about justice for all of our communities.
so, what do you most hope to achieve through your work with Sunrise?
I hope to stop the climate crisis and create millions of good jobs in the process. I dream of a world free from the root causes of the climate crisis, which are colonization, extraction, and exploitation. And I want to build an economy that works for everyone, that where our government finally works for working people and where kids grow up without the fear of whether or not we'll have a livable future and without these deep questions of like, is, are we all doomed?
Wonderful. What was it like being a person of color advocating for environmental education in a predominantly white area?
That's a great question. Yeah, I'm one of the first people. I'm the first person of color on the Boise School Board, and it's been really interesting. I think especially in our school district, we do have a problem with like representation, where our student body is a lot more diverse than our educators, who are a lot more diverse than their administrators, who are a lot more diverse than our school board. Um, and because of that, I think a lot of issues that are really critical actually to running a functional school district don't get talked about, right? Issues of uh, diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice. Issues of how we choose to enforce our policies. Stuff like the dress code. We saw vast inequities in enforcement, both across gender, as you might expect, but also across race and ethnicity. My voice matters. And I think because of that, I'm able to like really call out policies and things that people say that often like undermine the interests of our district in promoting an inclusive environment.
Okay. Now, I understand that you were arrested earlier this year during a climate change protest in New York. How did it make you feel?
It felt great. I mean, first of all, I want to recognize like a lot of people are not arrested, like are wrongfully arrested. And that being said, being arrested for a cause I care about at a protest, I think it's been a long-term goal of mine. And it's something that I feel very, very proud of. It helped me consider some of these bigger questions of like how we criminalize protesters, how we criminalize people who call out this like system that is so screwed up that it allows things like the climate crisis to take place.
I entirely agree with your statement. I feel that you have a strong word in that. But thank you so much. Uh, did you have a chance to learn about microsociety before this interview? If so, what do you think of it?
Yeah, I think it's just so impressive what you are doing, Martin, and what like other folks around the country who are working with micro society are doing. I think so often we like deny kids agency, right? We tell young people that you don't know enough. You need to like learn more before you can um, create value, before you can contribute to society, and that's like so screwed up and like totally untrue, right? And you and I both know that, Martin, um, because like what you're doing is creating so much value for society. And but not only that, you're also like learning in the process. And I think by giving students like efficacy, by giving students agency and autonomy to learn and create in a way that actually is productive for society, it's like what we need to do in our public school system, if we want to like prepare students today for the problems of tomorrow.
Yeah, it's definitely a wonderful program. With this Youth Now series, our organization hopes to inspire our students to become activists both in and outside of school. Now, this question, do you have any advice for them?
Yeah, that's a frequent question. Sometimes I'm like, I don't know how to respond because I think the way we come to organizing always looks so different for every person. My piece of advice to young folks is like, don't listen to the haters, right? Your voice matters. Your voice has power, and when you bring your peers together, when the more people you can get in to your movement, you can make so much change. And people will tell you like it's not possible. They'll tell you you're too idealistic. Those people just don't know your power. And so I think like organizing can start small, but it snowballs really quickly. And pretty soon you end up like working for one of the foremost climate justice organizations in the country, pushing the biggest climate policy in the world, the Green New Deal. Great time to plug. Sunrise Movement has a circles program that can train you how to organize your community and train you how to advocate for Green New Deal. And we'd love to have you apply. It's smvmt.org/circles.
All right, final question. Do you have any advice for parents and teachers about things they can do to help children become their best selves?
It's hard because I'm not a parent, I'm not a teacher. But I think but I've had really great parents and I've had really great teachers. And the thing they all have in common is they really just believe in their students. They really believe in my power, the power that every person has to grow and learn and create value for society. I think like we were just talking about, like so often we like assume that like kids can't add anything, and so often we're proved wrong by that. And I think it's just so important that we recognize kids' humanity and students' specialness. Like every person is special. Every person is has like power and can like change the world if they're given the right tools. And I think the educators and the parents that I've seen who are like most successful recognize that like what works for one kid might not work for everyone, but they're committed to every kid's success.
So, Shiva, thank you so much for showing us that when young individuals are proactive in their community, their voices will be heard. And thanks to all of you for joining us today. And to my fellow Micro Society peers, if you have a story or know a student who you would like to appear on our show, please send your nominations to us at bettertogether@microsociety.org. That's bettertogether@microsociety.org. Thank you again, and we'll see you next time.